I never thought a single dad's kindness would turn a blind date into a heartwarming miracle. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment my stomach dropped as he walked in. My heart pounded against my chest, and I felt the weight of the world crushing me. Tyler, a single dad, sat across the table, eyes full of warmth, but I could see the shadows lurking behind them. His son, a little boy with messy hair and big, curious eyes, had caught my attention from the start. There was something special about him, something almost otherworldly. He played with a small wooden car, pushing it back and forth across the table. Every time he giggled, it felt like the sound echoed against the walls of my soul. I knew something was off the moment Tyler mentioned his wife, the ghost of her presence hanging in the air like a thick fog. She had passed away, leaving only memories and lingering sadness in her wake that we exchanged awkward pleasantries. The tension was palpable. I wanted to reach through the distance, grab his trembling hands, and pull him closer. But it felt wrong, inappropriate even. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, there was a weight I couldn't ignore. My mind raced with questions. Why was he putting himself out there? How could he still be so kind in the face of such profound loss? As our drinks arrived, I tried to focus on the bubbly liquid, the fizzing sound a distraction from the tension. Each sip was a reminder of how fragile our lives are. Suddenly, a loud crash startled me, and I turned to see the boy's toy car had rolled off the table, shattering the silence like a broken dream. Tyler's face paled. The moment hung in the air, heavy with unspoken worries. In that split second, I recognized the depth of his juggling act: a father, a widower, a man seeking connection. Amid the chaos, I felt a strange connection to the little boy. I could see the innocence shining in his eyes, but also a glint of understanding that he shouldn't have at his age. He was a child facing the realities of life far too early. I wondered what secrets they shared, what heartaches they'd endured together. Tyler gently reached down, picking up the shattered pieces. Sweat glistened on his brow, and I could see the tremor in his hand. He wasn't just a dad, he was fighting against the tide, losing himself in the process. I felt my own hands trembling. My breath caught in my throat. The moment lingered, filled with unacknowledged hopes and fears, then, without warning, the room dimmed. A chill swept over us, and the air thickened like a heavy curtain closing around our little table. Tyler's eyes flicked to mine, full of questions. What if something terrifying lurked just out of sight? What if this meeting would lead to more than we bargained for? My heart raced. A mix of excitement and dread flooded my veins. Just then, the boy looked up, eyes wide, and whispered, "Mommy." It shattered me. The tension split the silence like an atom. All eyes turned to us. I felt theirs on my back and the weight of my own heart clutching painfully. Was I ready for what lay ahead? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sudden intrusion of the boy's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. "Mommy," echoed in my ears, a haunting reminder of loss that grasped at my heart, leaving a bitter ache in its wake. I could feel Tyler's entire being stiffen, the subtle shift in his posture a testament to the invisible weights he bore, and the color drained from his face, revealing the vulnerability just beneath the surface. That I sat there, struck by the surreal nature of the moment. It was a swirling vortex of hearts wide open yet guarded, like flowers waiting to bloom amidst a harsh frost. The boy's sweet innocence collided violently with the grief we all felt but dared not speak of. My hands tightened around the cool glass, a serviceable anchor in a storm of emotion. "Ty, can we have ice cream after dinner?" The boy asked, his voice hopeful, a gentle lilt that carried innocence like a worn-out blanket. He was trying to find comfort amid the chaos that surrounded us. There was something painfully beautiful in the way Tyler looked at his son, his expression a complicated blend of love and heartache. "Well, see, buddy," he replied softly, but the tightness in his voice betrayed him. I could almost see a flicker of a memory crossing his mind, a fleeting glimpse of what once was. It was then that I noticed the couple at the table next to us, their faces shifting from mild curiosity to concern. The man leaned in closer to his partner, whispering something I couldn't quite catch. Were they judging us? Or maybe, just maybe, they were silently witnessing the raw vulnerability that often goes unseen amongst strangers. "Mommy." The boy's voice escalated, a small quiver creeping in, and I could see tears glistening in his eyes. I felt my own welling at the corners, a desperate pinch in my throat. What was I getting myself into? I had no experience with loss, no frame of reference to navigate this kind of emotional turmoil. Yet, I couldn't ignore the pull in my chest, the instinct to reach out and offer comfort that I cleared my throat, and the sound shattered the air like glass. "You know, ice cream is really good for feeling better about things," I said, my voice shaky but resolute. "Maybe we can all have some?" Tyler's gaze shifted to me, vulnerability mingling with surprise. It lasted just a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Words unspoken danced between us. Would he take that step? Would he let me in, even just the tiniest bit? The boy's face brightened, and he scrambled to his feet, the chair screeching against the floor. Yes. Ice cream. The treasure of innocence forced a smile on Tyler's tired face, a turn of the tides in what had begun as an evening shrouded in darkness. As we shifted our focus, ordering dessert became a light-hearted distraction. The boy was animated, his laughter piping up through the din, painting smile after smile on our faces, but Tyler remained a deep ocean, hiding storms beneath calm waters. Chocolate or vanilla? I posed to them, enjoying the simple joy on the boy's face as he chose constantly between the two flavors, always hopeful, always curious. I wanted to swallow the moment whole, to capture it and hold it up to the universe, a shimmering emblem of promise amidst uncertainty. "Vanilla." The boy exclaimed, his tiny fists raised in triumph. "Vanilla it is," I echoed, a sense of hope pulsating in my veins. But just as our order was placed, the jarring buzz of Tyler's phone interrupted, a stark contrast to the warmth we were trying to cultivate. The momentary glow on his face dimmed as he glanced at the screen. A shadow passed over his features, a familiar dread tightening the muscles around his jaw. "Sorry," he muttered, his voice barely registering. I could see how the weight of whatever was displayed on that screen had somehow stolen the buoyancy from our festivities. He stood up, stepping outside to take the call, leaving me with the boy who was now quietly pushing around his dessert, uncertain. I felt an unshakable impulse to follow him, to ask about the conversation that now held him captive in yet another battle against his own demons. But I couldn't. I couldn't intrude further into the fractures of his life. So, I knelt beside the boy, searching for a way to stay connected. "What's your name?" I asked gently, trying to keep the fleeting warmth from slipping away like sand through my fingers. "Liam," he replied, glancing up with wide, earnest eyes that bore the wisdom of someone who had traversed fire. "Liam," I repeated, letting the name linger in the air. "Do you like to play outside?" Suddenly, his face lit up. "I love climbing trees," he declared, enthusiasm spilling over like the melting ice cream dribbling down the side of his cup, and just like that, a heartwarming connection sparked between us, and the weight of the world began to feel a little lighter. Yet, in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was not finished with us yet. After what felt like an eternity, Tyler came back, but there was a change in his demeanor, of fatigue laying across his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Before I could say anything, before we could dive back into the lightness we had created, a shadow fell over our table. "Tyler." The voice belonged to a woman, one who stood with an air of authority, her eyes sharp yet clouded with emotions I couldn't decipher. "Emily." Tyler's voice barely rose above a whisper, recognition and confusion crashing at once. I felt my heart skip. Who was she? What connections were locked between them that I had unwittingly stumbled upon? 1,000 questions flooded my thoughts, the web of uncertainty spun tighter around us. And in that heart-stopping moment, the whispers of unspoken secrets loomed larger than any ice cream could soothe. The tension at the table thickened as Tyler's eyes locked onto Emily, an old ghost stepping into the light of an unfamiliar moment. Her presence sent ripples through our fragile connection, as if we had been perched on the rooftop of our hopes, and now the ladder was yanked away. Liam, sensing the shift, leaned closer into the table, his small frame teetering on the edge of confusion. "Hey, Emily," Tyler managed, the tightness creeping back into his voice, turning the syllables into serrated edges. "Thought you'd be at the park today," she said, her posture poised yet betraying an undercurrent of anxiety. "Things changed," he replied curtly. The weariness etched in his features was sharply highlighted under the harsh glare of the fluorescent lights. I felt an instinctive need to shield Liam from this, to protect him from the storm brewing between his father and this woman who looked as if she had navigated a minefield of her own. Emily's eyes darted momentarily to me, assessing, and I braced myself as if she were making a decision that could sweep all of us away. "I wanted to check on you," she said, softer now as she approached our table. "It's been a while." "Yeah, well, in dealing with some stuff," Tyler replied, the harshness easing a fraction as he glanced down at Liam, his son's innocence begging for an explanation that was likely to be too complicated for a child to digest. Liam, oblivious to the gravity of the adult world, raised his ice cream to his lips, smudging white cream across his nose. "Can we climb trees after this?" he chirped, breaking the tension like a fragile glass, almost inviting balance back into the room. Emily's demeanor softened briefly at the sight of Liam, and I wondered for a moment what memories the little boy might evoke in her happy days perhaps, or moments that had turned bittersweet with time. "You're becoming quite the climber, huh?" she remarked, her voice lightening as she crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "Yeah. And in getting better. I can almost reach the top." His excitement sparked a moment of unity, a brief reprieve for Tyler that sent a flicker through Emily's eyes, but it was swiftly extinguished as the reality of the underlying tension crept back. That I felt this invisible thread pulling tighter around the three of us, and I was acutely aware of how small miracles often come laden with shadows. "Maybe you can teach me someday," Emily said, smiling down at him, the warmth of her interaction cutting through the chill that hung around. Yet, beneath that moment, things were still unspooling. Tyler cleared his throat, his expression hardening once more. "I think it's time we head home, Lee," he said, the authority rising in his tone cutting through the sweetness of the moment like a sudden winter snap. Liam's face fell, the enthusiasm dropping away like autumn leaves. "But what about ice cream?" he asked, his eyes wide with disbelief, a child's yearning for normalcy screeching against the harsh reality. Tyler glanced at me, an almost imperceptible nod as if he were debating whether to include me in this fractured family moment. And there it was again, the unspoken bond that fumbled clumsily between us. I felt a sudden urge to interject, to toss a lifeline back to Liam, to somehow sustain the glimmers of joy that flared so brightly against the encroaching darkness. "Liam, how about we pack some ice cream up and take it home? You can have it while you climb trees tomorrow," I suggested, looking at Tyler as if to say I hoped he would allow it. Liam's eyes lit up again, wide with delight, and Tyler seemed to waver for a moment. "All right, just this once," he said, the corners of his mouth twitching up in a half-smile. Emily straightened, visibly disturbed. "Tyler, we need to talk. It's important." The words hung in the air like an unlayered truth, vibrating with urgency. My heart raced, I could sense the storm quickly moving back in, uninvited. As we rearranged our orders to go, I could feel the tension palpable between Emily and Tyler, like two tectonic plates resistant to finding common ground. "Can't it wait?" Tyler asked, running a hand through his tousled hair, his voice barely above a whisper yet somehow carrying immense weight. "No, it can't," Emily shot back, sharp as glass. I watched Liam trying to offer both adults a semblance of normalcy, unaware of the turbulent undercurrents swirling just beneath. "Can we go soon?" he asked, his small voice wavering. "Just a few more minutes, buddy," Tyler replied, though his eyes kept darting to Emily, the words hanging between them heavily, unsaid. In that moment, as we waited, a few people around us lost in their own lives, and the world continued spinning in blissful ignorance, I realized that once the ice cream was distributed, the fragile cocoon of safety we'd wrapped around ourselves could be ripped apart at any moment. Suddenly, Emily's expression crumpled, emotion breaking free. "Tyler, she began, but the words faltered as if trapped in a web of their own making. With Liam now distracted by the promise of the ice cream sundae, the tension reached a boiling point, one that felt like the universe was about to crash in on us. And then I saw it. A flicker of uncertainty in Tyler's eyes that weighed heavy with secrets, a hint of implosion not just on this table, but in our lives as they had been spun thus far. Just as the ice cream cups were handed to us, Tyler's phone buzzed again. He pulled it out with shaking hands, and the color drained from his face as he read the screen. "We've got to get out of here," he whispered harshly, and the shadows that loomed before us engulfed my heart. "Why? What is it?" I asked, but it was too late for inquiries laden with hope. His gaze met mine, brimming with storms unknown, and the weight of his words hung between us, thick, suffocating, and unforgiving. Before I could fathom the meaning, Liam's laughter erupted as he caught sight of the sundae. And in that moment of innocence, with their world shifting so drastically around us, I realized we were all on the brink of an unraveling, and I wasn't sure how we would piece things back together again. The cliffhanger loomed, a gaping maw of what was to come, and fear settled like a cold breath in the back of my mind, overwhelming yet impossible to ignore. What were we about to face? How deep did Tyler's secrets run? And would we emerge shattered or stronger? As I stood there, clutching the ice cream cups that were meant to bring joy, it felt as if the ground was shifting beneath us. Tyler, pale and rigid, remained glued to his phone, the faint glow illuminating the fear etched across his features. The laughter of Liam, pure and untainted, seemed a cruel contrast to the undercurrents swirling among the adults. "Dad?" Liam looked up, confusion creeping into his voice, as if sensing that the playful moment was slipping away. He reached for Tyler's hand, his little fingers curling around it with hopeful trust. "Can we go climb trees? Please?" The innocence was heartbreaking. Tyler blinked, lost in an internal battle that coursed through him, battling against whatever news had rattled him. "Liam," he murmured, but his voice was a distant echo, swallowed by urgency. In that moment, I saw the father fighting against the man torn by a storm he hadn't yet revealed. Emily, too, looked shaken. The spark that had flickered between her and Tyler was now just smoke, drifting in the chaotic air. "You don't have to do this alone," she offered, her voice soft yet laden with an urgency that mirrored Tyler's, but Tyler shook his head, stepping back slightly, almost as if she had struck him physically. "I do have to," he replied, and the steel in his tone sent chills down my spine. It was as if he was warding off not just her words but the weight of their shared past, a burden that neither had been able to lay down. As he scanned the room searching for something, or perhaps, someone, my heart ached for Liam, who was caught in this turbulent storm. The sundae started to melt in my grasp, drips sliding between my fingers. I couldn't bear the thought of Liam's hopes dashed yet again. "Tyler," I spoke softly, trying to bridge the divide that was rapidly widening. "Whatever it is, maybe talking about it will help." He met my gaze, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, quickly chased away by a shadow of something darker. "I can't. Not now," he murmured, pushing the words out like nails. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again, a more urgent vibration. Tyler glanced down, his breath catching, revealing just enough to paint a picture of dread. "I need to go," he said, the panic breaking through as he started to turn away. "Go where?" I asked. The concern leaped from my heart to my lips, desperate to be a lifeline. That he wouldn't meet my gaze, focusing instead on Emily. "I know what I need to do," he said, determination flaring against the winds of uncertainty. But the words fell flat, heavy with the weight of his hidden struggles. "That we can help you through this. We're right here," Emily urged, moving closer, her desperation palpable. But Tyler's walls had surfaced anew, closing off like a fortress. "You don't know what you're saying. You're in over your head," he hissed. Liam looked between the two of them, caught in a crossfire only adults could understand. "Dad, please," he whispered, his voice catching in his throat, urgent and pleading. As a motherly instinct overcame me, I stepped forward, joining Liam's small frame in an attempt to envelop us in solidarity. "Tyler," I said firmly. "Whatever is happening, you don't have to face it alone. No storm lasts forever." In that second, I hoped to reflect the bond we had formed, the momentary kindness we had found in each other amidst the chaos. Perhaps we could navigate through the fragments together. Just then, the door swung open with a creak that echoed, and a figure stepped into the diner, casting an unexpected shadow over our table. A woman, older but striking, with an air of authority and recognition painted across her features. I felt the tension shift, a load of brittle air emitting from Tyler's frame as she stepped forward, intent in her eyes. "Tyler," she called, and his name seemed to hang in the air like a bell tolling a grim knell. He turned slowly, his face paling further as she approached, an unspoken history crackling between them. Emily instinctively stepped closer to Liam, her protective instincts ignited, and I found myself holding my breath. "Nicole," Tyler said, disbelief lacing his voice. What was happening? Liam, oblivious to the charged atmosphere, merely prattled on, pointing at the sundae melting away in my hand. "Look, ice cream." As the woman stepped into our space, I marveled at the way she bore a resemblance to the storm brewing in Tyler's expression. Was she connected to this cascade of emotions? "What are you doing here?" he managed, casting a furtive glance back at the younger woman, Emily, whose whole disposition had shifted to firm resolve. "I came to talk," Nicole said, her tone piercing through the air as she looked at Tyler with a conflicted mix of concern and determination. "It's urgent. You need to know." My heart raced. What could possibly be so urgent? The tightrope Tyler was walking wasn't just a personal night, now felt like it was open to the world, vulnerable to winds that threatened to sweep everything away. Liam finally broke through the heavy silence, tilting his head and blinking in childlike confusion. "Can we go climbing now? It's really important." The innocent faith and yearning splashed against the turmoil that engulfed us. In a world that seemed on the precipice of falling apart, the irony of a child's plea struck like lightning, a momentary flash illuminating the overwhelming shadows. But as I looked at Tyler, his face a mask of tumultuous emotions, I knew with a jolt of dread that truth was about to be unveiled. What did this woman want? What secrets did she carry, and how tightly were they woven into Tyler's already fractured world? Before any more words could escape, before resolutions could find a foothold, the air throbbed with anticipation, a pause pregnant with potential disaster or hope. I braced for the tumult ahead, uncertain of where our paths would intersect or twist apart completely. And so, the storm continued to swirl, an unwelcome specter at what was meant to be a moment of simple joy, the cliffhanger of our lives teetering perilously on the edge. As the silence stretched, Nicole's gaze remained steady on Tyler, her presence drawing the attention from the innocent laughter of Liam. A palpable tension clung to the air. It was as if the very walls of the diner had witnessed these two across time, holding their secrets like whispered regrets. I watched their silent standoff, feeling like an intruder in a deeply personal storm. Liam, blissfully unaware, knelt on his chair, pulling at Tyler's hand with a fervent hope. "Please, Dad, climbing trees is what we always do." His voice, tinged with a childlike fervor, cut through the air, fragile and pleading. But Tyler didn't respond to Liam. His eyes were fixated on Nicole, scanning the older woman's face as if deciphering a code. Underneath the coldness of composed external strength, I could sense fear lurking like an uninvited guest. "Can we have a moment?" Nicole finally asked, her voice firm yet softened by the edges of familiarity. It hit me then, the intimate fractures, the history that must have shaped their lives into the delicate and complex web they now navigated. "No," Tyler replied, the rejection sharp, a fortress suddenly bolted shut as he pulled away from her gaze. "Whatever you have to say can wait," he added coldly, biting back layers of emotions. "Tyler," Nicole pressed, stepping forward against the invisible barrier he was trying to erect, "you need to hear what I have to say. You don't understand what's at stake." "Stakes?" Tyler's voice cracked slightly, the facade slipping for just an instant. I could sense the turmoil inside him, perhaps an echo of love entangled with resentment. Liam, caught in the tempest, tugged harder at Tyler's sleeve. "Dad, please." His big blue eyes were desperate, glistening with unshed tears. "I just want to climb trees, not be sad." My heart twisted painfully, torn between wanting to shield the child from this encroaching storm and longing for Tyler to let down his walls just enough to navigate this dark place. "Liam," I gently interjected, hoping to defuse the tension, "how about we go outside and find a way to climb some trees? It'll be a little adventure." Liam spun around, the prospect of climbing brightening his face amidst the tumult, and he nodded vigorously. "Okay." But Tyler's eyes flew back to mine, his expression a cocktail of emotions swirling in his chest. I saw gratitude, pain, and an unquenchable thirst for protection for his son battling against the urgency of whatever reality Nicole was about to unveil. "Don't, Tessa." His warning pierced through my thoughts, a plea wrapped in fear. "You don't know what Tyler, I have to tell you," Nicole interrupted, her voice rising above his, determination clashing like thunder. "This isn't just the past. It's impacting your present. You need to take care of your son, your family. Don't drag Liam into this," he barked, turning sharply on Nicole, the protective instinct flaring like a wildfire igniting dry brush. Liam looked lost between the adults, confusion creasing his young brow. "Why are you fighting?" "I don't want fighting." "Me neither," I said, my heart breaking for him. It was suffocating watching this child bear the weight of adult turmoil. "Just listen." Nicole pressed, her hands slightly trembling as she tried to bridge the chasm hovering between them. "There are things you don't know. You need to hear them so you can protect what matters most. This isn't just about you or me. It's about Liam." I risked taking a step towards Tyler, a quiet solidarity in my presence against the surge of emotions. "Tyler, please. She's right about Liam. We need to steer him away from the darkness if we can." For a moment, I saw a flicker of doubt cross his face. There was a vulnerability there, the tender father yearning to do right by his son amidst a storm wreaking havoc on his existence. Then, with an unwilling heaviness, he turned away, his breath heavy and labored. The world outside the diner beckoned with its calls of laughter and dance, but the emotions swirling inside felt like a tempest confined within these fragile walls. Just then, the diner door swung open, and an elderly couple walked in, lingering gazes filled with comfort and a warmth that temporarily lightened the heavy atmosphere. Their jovial chatter floated around us like beams of light piercing through the turmoil. "See, Dad. They look happy." "Just like us," Liam chimed, eyes sparkling in precious innocence that I watched as Tyler's gaze shifted momentarily from Nicole to the couple, the stubbornness in his demeanor softening for just an instant. Perhaps there was hope, a reminder of love amidst this chaotic revelation. "Do you remember?" he murmured, finally looking down at Liam, the ghost of a smile ghosting his features. "You used to tell me trees were like crowns for kings." Liam's eyes brightened. "They are. Because kings can see the whole world up there." The moment felt suspended, a buoy in the deep waters threatening to drown. Just as I thought we might settle into a flicker of calm, Nicole leaned closer, her face taut with urgency. "Tyler, the reason I'm here, the news is dire. It's about your father." Tyler's breath caught, his composure splintering, eyes darting back to her in shock and horror. "What do you mean?" The air buzzed around us, a pin dropped in a silent room, vibrating with unspoken truth. Whatever secrets that had been buried were clawing their way to the surface, poised to unleash a force beyond comprehension. I felt a shiver run through me as I caught the panic rising in the rush of Tyler's breathing. In that moment, I understood this revelation would challenge everything he thought had put behind him. And as Liam clung to his father's hand, the weight of that revelation hung heavily, threatening to eclipse the light of his childhood. Before the flicker of hope could illuminate our dark paths, I braced for the storm now brewing, ready to capture the shockwaves of truth erupting from that moment. Would we still find our way through this, or would we be swept away in the tide of the past? The sudden reveal about Tyler's father settled awkwardly over us, thick and heavy like fog obscuring a once clear path. I could see the moment unravel in Tyler's eyes, shadows deepening as layers of pain peeled back, exposing raw wounds that time had only masked. It was as if his childhood had crashed in on him, everything he'd thought resolved now resurfacing with avalanche-like force. "Tyler," Nicole's voice trembled, grounding but insistent, "you need to listen. It's not just about the past, it's a matter of family. He's in trouble. You have to decide how to face this, how to save what's left." The room felt smaller as I kept glancing between them, sensing the weight of history and untold burdens colliding. Liam tugged nervously at Tyler's hand, his innocent world spinning around them. "Mommy, what's wrong? Are we going to climb trees later?" The pressure in the air held its breath, and for a moment, time stretched thin. Tyler's expression faltered, a bridge between man and boy, vacillating wildly. It was hard to pinpoint where the rage, confusion, and fear ended and the paternal instinct began. "Liam, sweetheart," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion as he knelt to meet his son's gaze, "there are some things we might have to deal with. Just give me a moment." At I end that brief exchange, my heart twisted as I watched Liam try to cling to his father, a drowning sailor reaching for a ship amidst turbulent waves. His small face was scrunched, brows knitting in uncertainty as he clung to the remnants of childhood innocence while the adults around him spiraled into chaos. That I felt an impulse to intervene, to step in and redirect their focus, to pull them back from the precipice of despair. "Hey, why don't we get some ice cream for everyone?" I proposed, throwing a small lifeline toward Liam, hoping to divert some of the gathering storm. "We can talk about climbing trees later. Ice cream is always a good idea, right?" Liam's instant nod brightened my spirits a fraction. "Can we get chocolate sprinkles?" "Of course." I smiled, feeling the tiniest sliver of hope as he bounded back to his chair, momentarily distracted from the intensity surrounding him. The warmth radiating from his innocence made me ache to protect that light, but Tyler remained distant, still trapped in the chill of Nicole's words. "What trouble?" he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper, raw with disbelief. "Health issues. Things you need to know, things that'll change how you understand your past, and your father." The gravity of her statement hung heavily, shadows flickering across the diner's linoleum floor, drowning any possibility of light emerging from this situation. Tyler turned his gaze away from Nicole, struggling against the inevitable. "Why should I care?" he burst out, anger flaring behind his eyes. "He hasn't been there for me or Liam." The bitterness was palpable, entangled in every word, and I winced for Tyler, aware of the riptide pulling him back in time, dragging him under the surface of memories he'd fought to escape. "Because," Nicole pressed, "this is about your son's legacy. You owe it to him to understand who he is and where he comes from." The tenacity of her plea was like an emotional tidal wave crashing over Tyler, pushing him to confront the past he'd buried. Silence filled the diner, heavy and oppressive, each person caught in their own web of thoughts. I watched as Tyler faced inward, brow furrowed and jaw tense. But the flicker of doubt in his eyes told me he was battling with his own sense of identity and how it intertwined with his father's choices. Unexpectedly, the elderly couple from earlier approached, sensing the storm that loomed. "Everything okay here?" The woman's warm gaze softened the frosty edge of the conversation. "Just a bit of family business," I managed, offering a tentative smile, grateful for their presentient reminder that kindness still existed amidst turmoil. "Family can be messy," the man said with the slightest chuckle, "but it's what you make of it that matters. Love always finds a way, doesn't it?" His words, simple yet profound, ever so gently prodded the air around us, forcing all of us to reconsider the shadows gathering in our hearts. That I sensed Tyler absorbing this, his mind racing, a conflict of past and present duel raging within him. "What if it's too late?" he finally whispered, desperation flooding his tone. "It's never too late," the woman insisted, a hint of wisdom in her voice. "You'd be surprised how often love can bridge the distance." As Tyler shifted on his feet, I felt the minutiae of uncertainty crackle in the air. Suddenly, the diner's front door swung open with a gust of autumnal breeze, startling everyone. A tall figure entered, slightly disheveled but with an aura of familiarity that sent a shockwave through the diner. My breath caught. It was Terence Tyler's estranged father. Gasps fanned through the diner, the air tinged with a kind of supernatural tension. The look in Tyler's eyes transformed from confusion to pure dread, and hope mingled with skepticism as he faced the embodiment of his darkest fears. "Tyler," Terence said, voice deep yet trembling slightly, "we need to talk." In that singular moment, time stilled. I felt Liam instinctively grab onto Tyler's leg, his simple grasp echoing the profound weight of the moment. It was a wrenching intersection of hope and despair, a reckoning of sorts, layered with a fear that was almost tangible. The ground beneath us shifted, and suddenly familiar dynamics reshaped themselves, questioning the meaning of family, love, and the secrets that tether us to our past. The future hung in the balance, the thread poised to snap or weave into something astonishingly new. What would happen next was bound to change everything. The air hung thick with unresolved tensions as Terence stepped deeper into the diner, each glance exchanged among the patrons echoing the shock that rang in my mind. Tyler's expression was a storm, and it felt as if we all held our breaths in anticipation of whatever storm might break forth. "Why now?" Tyler's voice trembled, but there was an edgy challenge cloaked in incredulity. Whatever sense of hope might have flickered to life was quashed beneath years of hurt, rejection, and unanswered questions. "Because I can't let you walk away again," Terence replied, his voice almost a strangled whisper, the weight of urgency wrapping around his words. I watched the older man's eyes search desperately, longing to bridge the chasm he had created, yet not quite knowing how to take the first step. Liam tugged at Tyler's pant leg, oblivious to the emotional maelstrom around him. "Daddy, is he your friend?" His innocence sliced through the tension like a knife, the sweetness of his voice providing a brief lifeline. I wanted to protect that spark in him from being extinguished by the dark shadows swirling in the diner. Nervously, Tyler ran a hand through his hair, glancing down at his son, then back at Terence. "He's not our friend, buddy. This is complicated." A moment passed where I witnessed the smallest flicker of vulnerability in Tyler's eyes, a silent beckoning for understanding amidst the chaos. "Tyler, please," Terence urged, stepping closer but remaining cautious, as if he feared a sudden movement might set off an earthquake. "I know I've failed you. I didn't want to show my face until I had something worthwhile to say, until I could be the father you needed. But I can't delay it any longer. I'm sick, and it's serious." With that admission, the atmosphere shifted once again. This was not merely a father seeking reconciliation, it was the dawning of a vulnerability that illuminated decades of decisions made in silence. Tyler's bravado faltered, his shoulders slumped, and I could sense the wall he'd built beginning to tremble. "What do you mean sick?" Tyler's voice cracked, and I saw in his expression the chaotic dance of anger, fear, and a raw flickering of sentiment breaking through. "Cancer," Terence sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. The word fell over us like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet somehow clearing away the fog of uncertainty. "I'm not sure how long I have, and I need to explain things about the past, about the choices I made. But more importantly, I need to make things right while there's still time." That we were silent, the gravity of his words settling deep into the marrow of the diner. I could hear the clinking of silverware from distant tables, but in our corner, the world had shrunk to a singular moment fraught with unending possibilities. "Tyler," Nicole interjected, her voice steady and soothing, "this isn't just about you two. It's about Liam. His future. You both can learn to heal and grow together if you allow it." As if summoned by the weight of her words, I felt a slight tug at my sleeve. It was Liam again, face scrunched, looking up at me with trusting eyes. "Are they going to take me climbing trees later?" His innocence was a beacon, illuminating the rapidly darkening landscape of the adults around him. For a fleeting second, the heaviness dissipated, and a wave of fondness washed over me. "Absolutely," I whispered back, the urge to shield this sweet boy from the reality of the situation rising within me. "But first, we need to help your daddy and grandpa talk about some things." Tyler's gaze flickered between Terence and his son, caught between the fears of the past and the promise of the future. "You don't get to just walk in and expect everything to be fine," he asserted, but the edge in his voice was no longer drenched in hostility, it was wrought with desperation. Terence nodded, acknowledging the pain he had caused. I know, and I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see me again. But I'm asking you, please let me be part of your life again. For both of you, if you'll let me explain. Go ahead, Tyler said, his voice a strained whisper that barely cut through the silence. I'm listening. But this better not be some excuse when you've clearly left us to fend for ourselves for too long. Amidst the turmoil, I felt a tremor of hope pulse through me as Terence began to speak. His words, hesitant yet sincere, carried the weight of years lost. I made choices I thought were right at the time. I wanted to protect you, but all I did was hurt you. All I can do now is try to mend the pieces of what I broke. But just as a sense of fragile connection began to blossom, the door swung open again, not just a gust of wind but someone purposeful, drawn like a moth to flame. My heart sank as a familiar face emerged, Sarah, the woman Terence had left in the past, a potential ally turned unexpected adversary. Tyler, I can't let this happen, she stated firmly, her determination palpable as she locked eyes with Terence. You're not just going to waltz back in after all this time and think everything will fall into place. Every heart in that diner mirrored the tumult of emotions swirling in the air, the fragile strings of hope and connection interwoven with the terrifying weight of inevitability. A sudden realization settled in that we all stood at the edge of our own shadows, staring into chasms of uncertainty while clinging to fleeting dreams of love and redemption. What would come next was amidst the chaos, hidden in the folds of uncertainty, waiting to either deliver the miracle we dared to hope for or thrust us deeper into the darkness from which we were all so desperately trying to escape. The air was alive with a tension that twisted and coiled, so thick it felt almost tangible, and yet beneath it, a current of vibrancy pulsed, ignited by the presence of Sarah. She bore the weight of unresolved emotions etched on her face, and her unyielding gaze directed at Terence felt like a barrier, a wall that threatened to close off any possibility of reconciliation. Are you really that naive? Sarah continued, her voice firm yet trembling with suppressed feelings. You think after all these years you can just come back, take everything for granted, and expect apologies to mend holes that deep? Tyler's hand twitched in a silent struggle against the tide of conflicting emotions. It's not just about the two of you, he shot back, his frustration spilling over. This is about Liam, about trust, and trust is something you destroyed when you walked out on us. You can't just demand forgiveness because you might be dying. Liam clutched my hand tighter, his small fingers digging into my palm as if he could sense the crackling emotions that surrounded him. Can we still go climbing trees after this? He asked, his voice too innocent for the gravity of the moment. I knelt down and forced a smile, but inside I felt a river of sadness building. Well, figure it out, I assured him, not entirely convinced. As I turned back to face the fierce debate unfolding, Terence took a step back, retreating into a silence that felt more like self-reflection than submissiveness. Sarah, I can't change the past, but I can't abandon my son again, he said, desperation pouring from his voice. This isn't about me wanting to fix things out of guilt, it's because I finally realized what I took for granted. Your realizations won't shield anyone from the pain you've caused, she retorted sharply, swallowing down the anguish that tugged at her expression. You think showing up will make him forget? It won't. You've given him scars, and those don't just fade because you have an illness. Tyler's jaw tightened as he glanced at me, a silent plea masked beneath layers of anger and sadness. At that moment, I knew we were teetering on the edge of something monumental, not just between Terence and Tyler but for everyone. Maybe we all have scars, I interjected softly, hoping to draw attention away from the raging fire. What if we took a moment, just a breath? Can we find common ground where we can heal instead of fighting? Liam's head perked up, innocent hope sparkling in his wide eyes. Like the band-aids I put on my cut when I fell? He asked, bringing a small laugh from the gathered crowd, momentarily breaking the tension. That lightness broke through for just a moment, and I held on to it tightly, hoping it could forge a connection amongst the storm. Yes, sweetheart, something like that, I replied, but then Terence glanced at Sarah, and the moment of levity shattered. I won't let myself fall into the darkness of guilt, he said, fixing his gaze on her. I'm tired of being haunted by my choices. I'm ready to fight for this family, whether it means I'm here or not. You can't claim to be ready when you weren't there for years, Sarah shot back. Being present means more than just showing up when it's convenient, and your battle won't erase the past. Enough, Tyler interrupted, his voice stronger than ever. You don't get to say what my father has or hasn't earned in this conversation. I need the truth. If we're going to navigate this, there can't be secrets hiding in shadows. You need to tell me what really happened, Terrence. The diner felt charged, every gaze on Terrence as he stood there, caught in a web of expectations and ghosts of former selves. It was as if time itself was suspended in that moment, and with an awareness that something would shift irrevocably, I held my breath. I left because I thought no one could know, Terrence began, his voice trembling with the weight of his confession. With Sarah, I thought. He hesitated, glancing at her, and I could see every unspoken word flicker around them like a cold wind. It's harder than it seems to explain away what I've done. What do you mean? Tyler stepped closer, his stance suddenly accentuated by the sharp edge of curiosity wrapped in the need for resolution. What don't I know? A shadow flickered across Terrence's face, hinting at a deeper terror and unforgotten truth that had been simmering beneath the surface. There's something I've kept from you about Sarah, about the circumstances under which I left. I wanted to protect you from the truth. Just as he was about to divulge his secret, the door swept open yet again. The soft chime above it masked the whisper of voices from an unfamiliar figure, a woman robed in simplicity, yet aura radiant with a quiet confidence. Her eyes scanned the diner before landing on Tyler, and everything seemed to halt. The air shifted, charged with anticipation. Tyler, she called, her voice cutting through the tumult. It's been too long. Recognition washed over Tyler's features, morphing from confrontation to surprise, and then confusion. The moment froze, a swirling cauldron of emotions, as the weight of impending truths and false hopes collided in unexpected and tumultuous waves. Who was this woman? And how did she entwine into the web of lives already so complicated? There, between the harsh realities of grief and longing, a new possibility emerged, heavy yet delicate. Its presence promised to unravel the very fabric of the moment we stood tangled within. Liam tugged at my hand, his small frame a vessel of innocent confusion. I turned to him, ready to reassure him that everything would be all right, just like I always did. But as I looked into his eyes, a mirror of the uncertainty that enveloped us all, I realized that not even my words could shield him from the currents of pain now sweeping through our lives. Who is she? Liam whispered, glancing from me to Tyler, his gaze darting between the two unresolved tensions, the shadow of his father and this mysterious woman who had suddenly crashed into our moment. I wished I had the answers, but as the stranger stepped closer, her confidence radiated a warmth that felt oddly soothing against the cold bite of the tensions swirling around us. I'm sorry to intrude, she spoke, her voice gentle yet unwavering. I mean no harm. Tyler's brows knitted together as he processed her presence. How do you know me? He asked, suspicion lacing his tone. The woman took a deep breath, steadying herself beneath her own whirlwind of emotions. My name is Clara. We met years ago, at a family gathering. Her eyes flickered with memories that were lost on Tyler. I've seen you grow from a distance, and I thought it was time for you to know the truth about your father. A storm brewed in Tyler's eyes. What truth? He edged closer, and a collective hold of breath seemed to echo in the diner. Tyler, I didn't know she would be here, Terrence interrupted, his face a mask of fear and regret. This isn't what I wanted. I was going to tell you, but not like this. What truth, Dad? Tyler's voice rose, sharp and unyielding. Clara centered herself, a firm but kind force amidst the chaos. When Terrence left, it wasn't just to escape. The circumstances surrounding his departure involved more than just family troubles. There was a serious threat that loomed over us, a truth he wanted to shield you from for as long as possible. What do you mean? What threat? Tyler demanded, a violent mix of confusion and desperation shaping his voice. The diner felt small, almost claustrophobic under the weight of the revelation, as if even the walls themselves held their breath. Clara's gaze softened, observing Tyler's turmoil. It was about protecting you, she explained quietly. There were people involved, dark influences. Your father was caught in a situation that twisted far beyond his control. That's why he left, and why he stayed away for so long. A palpable tension hung in the air, as if each character was a part of a larger script outlined by fate and circumstance. Liam, oblivious to the weight of adult complexities, continued to cling to my hand, seeking solace in the only source of comfort he knew. That's a lie. Sarah finally interjected, her voice rising, breaking through the haze of shock. You're rewriting the story, Clara. He left because he wanted to, not because he needed to protect us. It rewriting if it's the truth. Clara's voice remained even. There were choices made that were not solely his. The danger caused separation. It was never just about running away, it was survival. Tyler turned to Terence, pain piercing through his righteous anger. Is it true? His voice trembled. Were you really protecting us? Or is this just another way for you to absolve yourself of the blame? Tyler, Terence pleaded, stepping forward, desperate and raw. Everything I've done, I did it for our safety. I struggled. Every moment away from you was agony. Every moment I heard your laughter, I was terrified I was putting you in danger by being near you. I could see cracks forming, the depth of wounds laid bare and bleeding openly now. The power of vulnerability shifted dynamics. There was a long silence, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of ice and forgotten drinks at the counter. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a soft voice broke into the quiet, the innocent chirp of Liam as he asked, "What does that mean for climbing trees, Mom?" The room absorbed Liam's question, transforming the surroundings into something strange and surreal. Here we were, in the midst of a tempest of rage and revelations, and yet, all he could think about was the promise of simple joy, soft moments that reminded us of childhood hope. The tension hung like an uninvited guest, and we stood on the precipice of secrets about to break apart. "Mom," he pressed, his eyes wide with that hopeful innocence, driving a knife through our shared adult fears. The heartbeat of the diner seemed to synchronize with my own fears, a low hum of doubt rising up through me. I started, as I brought my knees in to crouch beside him, caught off balance by the weight of the moment. "Well, figure it out," I whispered once more, but this time it echoed hollow. Liam, innocent and unbroken by the conflicting emotions swirling around us, raised his hopes even higher. "Then we can go climbing trees after this, right?" But just as the warmth of hope flickered in the air, Clara's phone buzzed loudly on the table, interrupting the moment, stealing the light as her face turned pale. Her eyes darted to the screen, and without a single word, the room felt darker, the air charged with newfound fear. "Clara?" Tyler probed, his question wrapped in urgency. She hesitated, the weight of revelation and regret almost unbearable. It's about the threat," she managed, her voice trembling. "They're back. They know about Terence. We need to leave now." The world tilted beneath us, the gravity of both fear and the deeper truths slamming together. Just when we thought we were inching closer to understanding and healing, it seemed shadows were ready to come clawing out from the dark corners, threatening to pull us all under once more. The air seemed to freeze, thick with tension, as Clara's words echoed in my mind. The threat was no longer a ghost of the past, it had surfaced, ready to pull us into its dark embrace. My heart raced, eyes darting between Tyler, Terence, and the woman whose sudden appearance had undoubtedly sparked this tempest. Liam, oblivious, still clung to my hand, his innocence a fragile light against the deepening shadows. "Leave?" Tyler echoed, disbelief intertwining with anger. "You expect us to just run?" The fire in his eyes flickered, the battleground within him ignited anew, torn between protecting his son and grappling with the truth about his father. I felt a tremor of fear rip through me. We were all standing on unstable ground. "Tyler, we need to move," Clara insisted, her voice trembling but firm, a sense of urgency threading through her words. "You don't understand, this is bigger than us. We don't have time to sort through the past right now. We need to ensure Liam is safe." "Safe? From what?" Tyler demanded, his voice rising in pitch, filled with anguish. "You show up after all these years to tell me there's an unseen danger creeping into our lives? What kind of monster have you brought back into my world? You don't know what lurks in the shadows, Tyler. This isn't just about your family, it's about a threat that can tear us all apart." Clara insisted, desperation creeping through her usually calm demeanor. In this moment, the diner felt like a prison, walls closing in as secrets, fears, and anger swirled like a tornado. I couldn't comprehend the layers of what was happening, but one truth rang loud and clear: we had to protect Liam. Okay, I interjected, my heart pounding. Let's think logically. We need a plan, and fast. Tyler, even if you don't trust her, how can we leave without knowing this is real? I glanced at Clara. Can you explain what's happening so we can process this? As the tension held us captive, the metallic taste of dread clawed up my throat. Clara met Tyler's gaze, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of understanding reflected in the silence that followed. There's a group, dangerous people who believe Terrence has information that could put them ahead in whatever dark scheme they concocted. They've been watching him, and through that, they're watching you, Tyler, and unfortunately, Liam. The words cut through me, cascading like shards of glass hitting the floor. Liam looked up at Tyler with wide eyes, confusion pressing across his face, an innocent spark quickly dulled by the weight of fear creeping in. Listen to her, Ty, I urged, stepping closer to him, prepared to help him peel back the layers of his heart. This isn't just about your past, it's about Liam's future. Tyler echoed like a wounded animal. What kind of future can we expect if danger is lurking around every corner? If my past comes crawling back to haunt us, I can help. Terrence spoke suddenly, his voice breaking through the tension. I know the risks, I've seen what they are capable of. While I was away, I became aware of their plans. If we work together, if we face this as a family, we can protect Liam. There's power in unity. Tyler scoffed, rage boiling beneath the surface. You think I could trust you again? You destroyed any semblance of family by running away. You're nothing but a stranger to me now. And to Liam. Before he could say more, I stepped closer, the weight of the moment anchoring me to the belief that sometimes, amidst the wreckage, something beautiful could emerge. Tyler, please, I urged, holding his fiery gaze. You can't deny your father's chance at redemption, even if he is the one who faltered all those years ago. Maybe letting him back in could be the very thing that ties our family together against this threat. Liam's eyes darted between us, his innocent awe pleading for understanding in this web of chaos. Can we still go climbing trees? He asked, a gentle plea that pulled at my heart. I knelt before the boy, cupping his cheek, wishing I could spare him the unfolding storm. Liam, I said softly, we will find a way, but right now we need to face something much larger. It's a storm we must weather together. Do you understand? He nodded slowly, though his brows knitted in confusion, a mixture of understanding and the innocence of childhood still flickering from him. The weight of the upcoming battle was clear, and terror clutched at me as I considered all we had to lose. Just like that, the walls of the diner felt like they were closing in, unable to protect us from the chaos that unfolded outside. As Clara's phone buzzed again, urgency radiated through me, and I felt that this could be the moment we either found unity or succumbed to the darkness threatening to engulf us. Together, Tyler. We can do this together, I whispered, the electricity between us igniting something raw and unyielding within his stormy gaze. No more running. For Liam, with a pained breath, he tore his eyes from the distance and landed them on his father. I still believe you've hurt us. But if you really want to help, then I'll give this one chance. But you better be prepared to pull your weight. The shadows writhing around us seemed to flicker, holding their breath beneath the weight of his words. Terrence took a step forward, hope fluttering across his face, but uncertainty lingered, threading a delicate path between them. Suddenly, Clara grabbed her phone, and with urgency, she turned to the door. I think we should probably go now. Before we could gather our thoughts, the door swung wide open once again, a gust of wind whipping through and drawing all our senses to the threshold. In stepped a figure clad in dark attire, a low murmur of recognition rippling through Tyler's shoulders. Not so fast, a chilling voice declared, the sound slicing through me like glass. The encounter had morphed into a pulse of reckoning. They knew. They always knew. As chaos erupted, Tyler's eyes met mine, both of us touching the strings of fate that had woven our lives into this indescribable moment. It was all or nothing now, an embrace of uncertainty and hope amidst the darkness looming ever closer, like a storm ready to wreak havoc upon all we had fought and strived for. I felt the pull of my heart, not just my own but for Tyler and Liam too. And as the weight of the unfolding tempest crashed in, I realized that in the shadows, a flicker of light still remained, hope on the horizon illuminating the path towards healing, love, and ultimately, reunion. Run, I urged, gathering my strength, ready to fight back against whatever awaited us. Because together, we would face this storm. Together, we would find a way to climb those trees once again. And in the cacophony of voices, as uncertainty loomed, I held fast to the memory that amidst chaos lies the sparks of change, and they could light our path home. For the first time in a long time, I felt the surging pulse of hope, unwavering, unyielding, a relentless force driving us forward toward our shared tomorrow. Through every obstacle, darkness and fear intertwined, underneath it all lay the simple truth: love is stronger than shadows. And as we ran from the storm, I felt the tides of our story shift, for together we would carve our destinies anew.